Hey everyone, welcome back to Book Bloom. I'm so excited to share something absolutely incredible with you today. But before we dive in, let me ask you something that might hit close to home. Are you living the life you truly want, or are you constantly worried about what others think? Do you find yourself making decisions based on fear of disappointing people? Are you stuck in patterns that you know aren't serving you, but you just can't seem to break free? If you're nodding your head right now, then this video is going to be a game changer for you. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most revolutionary psychology books ever written, The Courage to be Disliked, by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. Now, I know what you might be thinking, another self-help book review? But trust me, this is different. This book challenged everything I thought I knew about human psychology, relationships, and personal freedom. It's based on Alfred Adler's individual psychology, and it's going to blow your mind. I remember when I first read this book, I was going through a really tough phase in my life. I was constantly seeking approval from everyone around me, sacrificing my own happiness just to avoid conflict. I was living as a people pleaser, and I was miserable. But this book changed everything for me. The concepts we're going to explore today are not just theoretical. They're practical, life-changing tools that you can start using immediately. By the end of this video, you'll understand why most of your problems stem from one source, how to break free from the chains of other people's expectations, and most importantly, how to live authentically without fear. So grab a notebook, get comfortable, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. And hey, if this content helps you, please hit that like button and subscribe to Book Bloom for more life-changing book insights. Your support means the world to me. Point 1. The revolutionary truth about your past. Let me start with something that might shock you. Everything you've been told about trauma and how your past shapes you, it's not entirely true. Meet Alfred Adler, a brilliant psychologist who worked alongside Freud and Jung, but had a completely different perspective on human behavior. While Freud believed your past determines your future, Adler believed something radical. You choose your future, regardless of your past. This isn't just wishful thinking. It's backed by decades of psychological research. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this concept. I once knew two brothers who grew up in the same household with an alcoholic, abusive father. Both experienced the same trauma, the same pain, the same dysfunction. Fast forward 20 years. One brother became an alcoholic himself, constantly blaming his father for his problems. The other brother became a successful counselor who helps people overcome addiction. When asked about their choices, the first brother said, "I drink because my father was an alcoholic. I learned this behavior from him." The second brother said, "I chose never to drink because I saw what alcohol did to my father and our family." Same past, same trauma, completely different outcomes. This is the power of what Adler called individual psychology. The book presents this through a fascinating dialogue between a young man and a wise philosopher. The young man, like many of us, believes his past trauma is the reason for his current struggles. But the philosopher challenges this limiting belief with profound wisdom. Here's the truth that changed my life. You are not determined by your past experiences, but by the meaning you give to those experiences. Your past doesn't control you. Your interpretation of your past does. Think about it. Right now, you have the power to rewrite the story of your life. You can choose to be a victim of your circumstances, or you can choose to be the hero of your own journey. This single mindset shift can transform everything. Point 2. The hidden truth about all your problems. Now, let me share something that might surprise you. According to Adler, all problems in life, and I mean all problems, are interpersonal problems. Every single issue you're facing right now is somehow connected to your relationships with other people. This sounds extreme, but think about it. If you were completely alone on a deserted island, would you have problems with self-esteem? Would you worry about being successful? Would you feel anxious about your appearance? Would you experience jealousy or envy? The answer is no. These feelings only exist in relation to other people. Let me give you a personal example. I used to struggle with severe imposter syndrome in my career. I constantly felt like I wasn't good enough, like I was going to be found out as a fraud. But this feeling only existed because I was comparing myself to my colleagues, worrying about what my boss thought, validation from others. The moment I realized this was an interpersonal problem, everything changed. I stopped focusing on what others thought and started focusing on my own growth. growth and contribution. The imposter syndrome didn't disappear overnight, but it lost its power over me. Here's the beautiful part. When you understand that your problems are interpersonal, you also understand that you can solve them by changing how you relate to others and, more importantly, how you relate to yourself. But there's a catch, and this is where it gets really interesting. You cannot change other people. You can only change yourself. This might sound frustrating at first, but it's actually the most liberating truth you'll ever learn. When you stop trying to change others and start focusing on changing yourself, something magical happens. Your relationships begin to transform naturally. People respond differently to you because you're showing up differently in the world. Point 3. The 3 life tasks that define your happiness. Adler identified 3 fundamental tasks that every human being must navigate: work tasks, friendship tasks, and love tasks. Your happiness and mental health depend on how well you handle these 3 areas. Let me break this down for you. Work tasks aren't just about your job. They're about your contribution to society, your sense of purpose, and how you add value to the world. This includes your career, your creative pursuits, and any way you contribute to the greater good. Friendship tasks involve your ability to connect with others, build trust, and maintain healthy social relationships. This is about community, belonging, and your capacity for platonic love and support. Love tasks encompass romantic relationships, intimate partnerships, and your ability to be vulnerable and open with another person. This is often the most challenging area for people. Here's what I've observed in my own life and in coaching others. Most people are severely imbalanced in these 3 areas. Some become workaholics, excelling professionally, but neglecting relationships. Others become so focused on romantic love that they ignore friendships and career growth. Still others build great friendships, but struggle with intimacy or meaningful work. I remember a period in my life when I was crushing it professionally, but my personal relationships were falling apart. I thought success at work would make me happy, but I felt empty and disconnected. It wasn't until I consciously worked on balancing all 3 areas that I found true fulfillment. The key insight here is that you need to actively work on all 3 areas simultaneously. You can't achieve lasting happiness by excelling in just 1 or 2 areas while neglecting the 3rd. Point 4. The shocking truth about your emotions. This next point is going to challenge everything you think you know about emotions and psychology. Adler proposed something revolutionary. We choose our emotions, even the negative ones. Now, before you think I'm crazy, let me explain. Adler distinguished between 2 approaches to understanding human behavior: the causal approach and the teleological approach. The causal approach, which most people believe, says that your emotions are caused by past events. You're anxious because of trauma. You're angry because of injustice. You're sad because of loss. The teleological approach, which Adler championed, says that you choose your emotions to achieve specific goals, even if you're not consciously aware of it. Let me give you an example that might sting. Have you ever known someone who seems to always be the victim? They always have drama, always have problems, always need rescuing. According to Adler, this person unconsciously chooses to remain in victim mode because it serves a purpose. It gets them attention, sympathy, and allows them to avoid taking responsibility for their life. I'm not saying this to judge or shame anyone. I'm saying this because it's empowering. If you choose your emotions, even unconsciously, then you can learn to choose different emotions. I used to struggle with anger issues. I would explode over small things and then blame my reaction on stress or other people's behavior. But when I learned about Adler's concept, I realized that anger was serving a purpose for me. It made me feel powerful and in control when I actually felt helpless. Once I understood this, I could start choosing different responses. Instead of anger, I could choose curiosity, compassion, or simply walking away. This doesn't mean emotions are fake or that mental health struggles aren't real. It means you have more power over your emotional life than you might realize. Point 5. The life-changing power of separation of tasks. This concept alone could transform your entire life. Adler taught that we must clearly separate our tasks from other people's tasks. This means distinguishing between what you can control and what you cannot control. Here's the simple rule. If you can directly influence or control something, it's your task. If you cannot directly influence or control it, it's someone else's task, and you need to stay out of it. Let me give you some examples. Your tasks: working hard, being honest, treating people with respect, developing your skills, making your own decisions. Other people's tasks: whether they like you, whether they promote you, whether they appreciate your efforts, whether they choose to be in a relationship with you. Your tasks as a parent: loving your children, providing guidance, setting boundaries, teaching values. Your children's tasks: making their own choices, learning from their mistakes, developing their own relationships, finding their own path in life. This concept revolutionized my relationships. I used to constantly worry about whether people liked me, whether I was saying the right things, whether I was meeting everyone's expectations. I was exhausted from trying to control things that were completely outside my control. When I learned to separate tasks, I stopped trying to manage other people's opinions and started focusing on being the best version of myself. Paradoxically, my relationships improved dramatically because I stopped being needy and controlling. Here's the hard truth. When you interfere in other people's tasks, you create problems. When parents do their children's homework, they rob them of the opportunity to learn responsibility. When you try to control your partner's emotions, you create resentment and distance. The book teaches us to focus intensely on our own tasks and to respectfully allow others to handle their own tasks. This creates healthier boundaries and more authentic relationships. Point 6. Living in the present moment. Most people are not living in the present moment. They're either stuck in the past or lost in the future, and they're missing the only moment that actually exists: right now. Being stuck in the past looks like constantly regretting decisions, blaming others for your current situation, or wishing things were different. It sounds like, if only I had done this differently, or my life would be better if that hadn't happened to me. Being lost in the future looks like constantly worrying about what might happen, procrastinating on important tasks, or believing that happiness exists somewhere in the future. It sounds like, I'll be happy when I get promoted, or once I find the right person, my life will be perfect. But here's what I've learned. The past is just a memory, and the future is just imagination. The only moment where you have any real power is right now. I used to be a chronic worrier. I would lie awake at night, thinking about all the things that could go wrong, all the ways I might fail, all the problems I might face. This anxiety was stealing my peace and my ability to take action in the present moment. When I learned to focus on the present, everything changed. Instead of worrying about future problems, I started focusing on what I could do today. Instead of ruminating about past mistakes, I started learning from them and moving forward. Living in the present doesn't mean you don't plan for the future or learn from the past. It means you don't let the past or future steal the power and joy of the present moment. Here's a practical exercise that changed my life. Several times a day, I ask myself, what can I do right now that will make the biggest positive impact? This simple question brings me back to the present and helps me focus on what actually matters. The difference between inferiority and superiority. Adler had fascinating insights about inferiority and superiority complexes. He said that feelings of inferiority are actually natural and healthy. They motivate us to grow and improve. But inferiority complexes are destructive and limiting. Let me explain the difference. Healthy inferiority feelings sound like, I'm not good at public speaking yet, so I'm going to practice and improve. This motivates growth and learning. Unhealthy inferiority complex sounds like, I'm terrible at everything, I'll never be successful, there's no point in trying. This leads to paralysis and victim mentality. Similarly, striving for superiority doesn't mean trying to be better than others. It means striving to be the best version of yourself. It's about personal growth, not competition. I used to compare myself constantly to others, especially on social media. I would see other people's highlight reels and feel inadequate about my own life. This comparison was making me miserable and preventing me from appreciating my own growth and achievements. When I learned to compete only with myself, everything changed. I started asking, am I better today than I was yesterday? This shift in perspective allowed me to celebrate small wins and maintain motivation even when progress was slow. The book teaches us that when you compare yourself to others, you're playing a game You can never win. There will always be someone more successful, more attractive, more talented in some area. But when you focus on your own growth and progress, you're playing a game where you can always win. Point 8. Understanding your lifestyle. This is one of the most profound concepts in the book. Adler believed that by age 4 or 5, we develop what he called a lifestyle, an unconscious blueprint that determines how we approach life, relationships, and challenges. This lifestyle isn't about fashion or preferences. It's about the deep patterns and strategies we use to navigate the world. These patterns are usually formed in response to our early experiences and our attempts to find belonging and significance. Let me share some common lifestyles. The pleaser. This person learned early that love and acceptance come from making others happy. They constantly sacrifice their own needs to avoid conflict and gain approval. The rebel. This person learned that the way to maintain independence and avoid vulnerability is to resist authority and push against expectations. The victim. This person learned that helplessness and suffering bring attention and care from others. They unconsciously create drama and problems to maintain this dynamic. The achiever. This person learned that their worth comes from accomplishments and success. They're driven to constantly achieve more to prove their value. I recognized myself as a combination of pleaser and achiever. I was constantly trying to make everyone happy while also driving myself to achieve more and more. This combination was exhausting and ultimately unsustainable. The beautiful thing is that once you become aware of your lifestyle, you can consciously choose to change it. You're not stuck with patterns that were formed when you were a child. You can develop new ways of thinking and being that serve you better. Point 9. The revolutionary concept of social interest. Adler believed that the key to psychological health and happiness is what he called social interest, a genuine concern for the welfare of others and a desire to contribute to the common good. This might sound like typical advice about being kind to others, but it's much deeper than that. Social interest is about recognizing that your individual well-being is intimately connected to the well-being of your community and society. People with high social interest are not just successful, they're fulfilled. They understand that true happiness comes not from what you get, but from what you give. They find meaning in contributing to something larger than themselves. I experienced this transformation in my own life. For years, I was focused primarily on my own success, my own happiness, my own problems, but I felt empty despite external achievements. It wasn't until I started focusing on how I could serve others and contribute to my community that I found deep satisfaction and purpose. This doesn't mean you should become a martyr or sacrifice your own needs. It means understanding that when you contribute to the greater good, you're also contributing to your own well-being. When you help others grow, you grow. When you make your community better, your own life becomes better. Practical ways to develop social interest include volunteering for causes you care about, mentoring others, creating content that helps people, participating in community activities, and simply practicing kindness and compassion in your daily interactions. Encouragement versus praise. This distinction is crucial for anyone who wants to build healthy relationships, whether as a parent, partner, friend, or leader. Most people think praise and encouragement are the same thing, but they're actually quite different and have very different effects. Praise focuses on the person and their inherent qualities. You're so smart, you're talented, you're the best. While this might feel good in the moment, praise can actually be harmful because it creates dependency on external validation and fear of not living up to the label. Encouragement focuses on effort, process, and growth. You worked really hard on this. You've improved so much. You didn't give up even when it was difficult. Encouragement builds internal motivation and resilience. Let me share a personal example. When I was growing up, I was often praised for being smart. This felt good initially, but it also created enormous pressure. I became afraid to try new things or take risks because I might fail and prove that I wasn't actually smart. I developed what psychologists call a fixed mindset. If instead I had been encouraged for my effort and persistence, I would have developed a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. This applies to all relationships. Instead of telling your partner, "You're amazing," try, "I appreciate how thoughtful you were in that situation." Instead of telling a friend, "You're so talented." Try, "I admire how dedicated you are to improving your skills." This shift from praise to encouragement creates stronger, more authentic relationships and helps people develop genuine self-confidence rather than external validation dependency. Point 11. The art of accepting imperfection. Perfectionism is one of the biggest barriers to happiness and success. Most people think perfectionism is about having high standards, but it's actually about fear. Fear of criticism, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. Perfectionists often procrastinate, avoid taking risks, and miss opportunities because they're waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan. They live in constant stress and dissatisfaction because perfection is impossible. The book teaches us to have the courage to be imperfect. This doesn't mean being careless or not trying your best. It means accepting that mistakes and failures are part of the learning process and that good enough is often better than perfect. I used to be a chronic perfectionist. I would spend hours obsessing over details that didn't really matter. I would avoid starting projects because I wasn't sure I could do them perfectly, and I would beat myself up over small mistakes. Learning to accept imperfection was liberating. I started taking more risks, trying new things, and focusing on progress rather than perfection. Ironically, this led to better results because I was actually taking action instead of paralyzed by perfectionist anxiety. Here's a practical approach. Aim for excellence, not perfection. Excellence is about doing your best with the resources and time you have. Perfection is an impossible standard that prevents you from ever being satisfied. Point 12. The ultimate freedom. The climax of the book is about freedom. Not political freedom or financial freedom, but psychological freedom. This is the freedom to be yourself, to make your own choices, and to live according to your own values regardless of what others think. Most people are not free. They're trapped by the expectations of others, by their need for approval, by their fear of being disliked or rejected. They make decisions based on what they think others want, rather than what they truly want. True freedom requires courage, the courage to be disliked, the courage to disappoint others, the courage to stand up for your values, even when it's unpopular. But here's the paradox. When you have the courage to be disliked, you often become more likable. When you stop desperately seeking approval, you become more authentic and attractive. When you stop trying to please everyone, you attract people who genuinely appreciate who you are. I experienced this transformation in my own life. When I stopped being a people pleaser and started being authentic, I lost some relationships, but the relationships that remained became deeper and more meaningful. I also attracted new people who were drawn to my authenticity. Freedom also means taking full responsibility for your life. You can't blame your past, your circumstances, or other people for your choices. This is scary because it means no excuses, but it's also empowering because it means you have the power to change your life. Point 13. Practical steps to transform your life. Now that we've explored all these profound concepts, let me give you practical steps to start implementing them in your life. Start a daily reflection practice. Spend 10 minutes each evening asking yourself, what did I do today that was my task versus someone else's task? What emotions did I choose and why? How did I contribute to my community? What progress did I make toward becoming my best self? Second, practice the courage to be disliked in small ways. Share an opinion that might be unpopular. Say no to a request that doesn't align with your values, or make a decision based on what you want rather than what you think others want. Third, focus on encouragement rather than praise in your relationships. Notice people's efforts, growth, and character rather than just their achievements or inherent qualities. Fourth, identify your lifestyle patterns. Are you a pleaser, achiever, rebel, or victim? Once you recognize your patterns, you can consciously choose different responses. Fifth, separate your tasks from others' tasks in one specific area of your life. Maybe stop trying to manage your partner's emotions, or stop doing your children's homework, or stop trying to control your colleagues' opinions of you. Sixth, practice living in the present moment. When you catch yourself ruminating about the past or worrying about the future, gently bring your attention back to what you can do right now. Seventh, find ways to contribute to your community. This doesn't have to be huge. Even small acts of kindness and service can develop your social interest. Remember, transformation is a process, not an event. Be patient with yourself as you practice these new ways of thinking and being. Some days will be easier than others, and that's perfectly normal. Friends, we've covered so much ground today, and I'm genuinely excited for you to start implementing these concepts in your life. The Courage to Be Disliked isn't just a book. It's a roadmap to psychological freedom and authentic living. The most important thing to remember is this: you have the power to create the life you want. You're not a victim of your past, your circumstances, or other people's opinions. You're the author of your own story, and you can start writing a new chapter today. These concepts have personally transformed my life, and I've seen them transform the lives of countless others. But they only work if you actually apply them. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. So here's my challenge to you. Choose one concept from today's video and commit to practicing it for the next week. Maybe it's separating your tasks from others' tasks. Or maybe it's practicing the courage to be disliked in small ways. Or maybe it's focusing on encouragement rather than praise. Whatever you choose, stick with it for 7 days and notice what changes. Then come back and share your experience in the comments. I read every comment, and I'm genuinely interested in hearing about your journey. If this video has added value to your life, please hit that like button and subscribe to Book Bloom. Your support helps me create more content that can impact lives. And if you know someone who could benefit from these concepts, please share this video with them. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Which concept resonated most deeply with you? What's one area of your life where you're going to apply these principles? Your engagement helps me understand what content serves you best. Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to live authentically. You don't need to wait for perfect conditions to start changing your life. You have everything you need right now to begin this transformation. The courage to be disliked is really the courage to be yourself, and the world needs more people who have the courage to be authentically themselves. So go out there, be brave, be real, and create the life you truly want. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and keep blooming. This is Book Bloom, and I'll see you in the next video.